First contact. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her observatory desk, coffee growing cold beside her keyboard as she stared at the readings flooding her screen. The radio signals were unlike anything she'd encountered in her 15 years at SETI. They weren't random cosmic noise or earthly interference, they carried a clear mathematical pattern, one that repeated with precise intervals. "James," she called out to her research assistant, who was dozing in the break room. "James, get in here now." James Martinez stumbled in, his dark curls askew. "What's up, Dr. Chen? Another false positive?" "No, this is different." Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up visualization after visualization. "Look at this pattern. It's a perfect sequence of prime numbers, but with variations that couldn't possibly occur naturally." The young researcher leaned in, his sleepiness forgotten. "That's impossible. Where's it coming from?" "That's the thing." Sarah switched to another screen showing trajectory data. "It's coming from multiple points, all converging on our solar system. Whatever these signals are, they're getting closer." Within hours, observatories across the globe confirmed Sarah's findings. 12 distinct objects, each roughly the size of a small office building, were approaching Earth in a precise geometric formation. They would reach Earth's orbit in approximately 72 hours. The world erupted into chaos. Stock markets crashed, religious leaders called emergency sessions, and military forces worldwide went on high alert. But in the midst of the pandemonium, something extraordinary happened. The aliens began to broadcast. Their message, transmitted in over 200 human languages simultaneously, was simple: "We come bearing gifts for the children of Earth. We mean no harm." Major General Marcus Reynolds of the United States Space Force wasn't buying it. In his secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, he assembled his top advisors. "It's the oldest trick in the book," he growled, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. "The Trojans had their horse, and now these things think they can waltz in with gifts for our children." Dr. Aisha Patel, the Pentagon's leading xenobiologist, disagreed. "Sir, if they wanted to attack, why announce themselves? Why transmit in our languages? The level of technological sophistication we're seeing suggests they could have simply struck without warning." "Unless this is psychological warfare," Colonel Lisa Wong interjected. "Targeting children is a powerful way to manipulate public opinion." Meanwhile, in suburban Minnesota, 12-year-old Tommy Harrison watched the news with his younger sister Emily. Their parents were arguing in the kitchen about whether to flee to their grandmother's cabin in the woods. "I don't think they're bad," Emily said softly, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "They sound nice in the messages." Tommy wasn't so sure, but he didn't want to frighten his sister. "Maybe they're like E.T., he suggested, though he'd never actually seen the movie. It was before his time. Across the world, similar scenes played out. Parents struggled with impossible decisions while their children, somehow less burdened by humanity's long history of conflict and betrayal, remained cautiously optimistic. In New Delhi, 8-year-old Priya Sharma drew pictures of what she imagined the aliens might look like, while her father, an Indian Air Force pilot, was called to an emergency deployment. In Lagos, teenage twins Olayinka and Oluwaseun Adebayo debated the visitors' intentions while helping their mother stock up on emergency supplies. As the alien vessels drew closer, their formation shifted. The 12 ships arranged themselves in a perfect circle around the Earth, positioned at equal intervals. Each ship maintained a geosynchronous orbit above a major population center: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, New Delhi, Sao Paulo, Lagos, Sydney, Cairo, Mexico City, and Jakarta. Dr. Chen, now working directly with NASA, made another breakthrough. "The ship's hulls," she explained to a panel of international scientists, "they're changing their molecular structure in response to our scanning attempts. It's like, they're trying to make themselves more compatible with our technology, allowing us to understand them better." But Major General Reynolds saw it differently. "They're adapting to our defensive capabilities," he warned the Joint Chiefs. Every scan we perform gives them more information about our technological limitations. The aliens' next transmission came 48 hours after they achieved orbit. In 12 hours, we will send down 12 gifts. One to each city below our vessels. The gifts are for your children. They will understand. Please do not interfere. The world's governments faced an impossible decision. Should they allow these mysterious gifts to reach Earth's surface? Should they risk the lives of millions by attempting to shoot them down? And why children? President Helena Martinez of the United States faced the press with calm determination. We have configured our defensive systems to monitor these deliveries closely. At the first sign of hostile intent, we will respond with full force. However, we must also consider the possibility that this truly is a peaceful first contact. In orbit, the alien vessels began to glow with a soft, purple light. Small objects, no larger than shipping containers, detached from each ship. They descended slowly, their surfaces rippling with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in harmony with the Earth's own magnetic field. Tommy and Emily Harrison watched from their backyard as one of the objects descended toward Minneapolis. Their parents had decided not to flee, partly because all major highways were gridlocked with evacuation traffic, and partly because something about the aliens' messages rang true to them. Look! Emily pointed as the object grew closer. It's dancing. She wasn't wrong. The gift, as it descended, moved with an almost musical quality, its lights shifting in patterns that seemed to respond to the movements and sounds of the city below. In her laboratory, Dr. Chen recorded unprecedented levels of quantum entanglement emanating from the objects. They're not just containers, she realized. They're some kind of consciousness technology. They're alive. Major General Reynolds watched the same data with growing alarm. Launch the interceptors, he ordered, overriding his civilian superiors. Take them down before they reach the surface. Sir, Colonel Wong protested, we don't have authorization. By the time we get authorization, it'll be too late, Reynolds snapped. Launch the interceptors. Now. High above 12 of Earth's major cities, aerospace defense systems roared to life. Missiles streaked upward toward the descending gifts, their contrails drawing white lines across the dawn sky. Tommy and Emily's father pulled them away from the window just as the first explosion lit up the Minneapolis skyline. The interceptor missile had found its mark, but instead of destroying the gift, it created something entirely unexpected. The gift's outer layer absorbed the explosive force, transforming it into a cascade of rainbow-colored light that spread across the sky. Similar scenes played out above other cities as humanity's weapons encountered alien technology for the first time. And then, something even more extraordinary happened. The gifts, unharmed but altered by the attacks, began to sing. The sound was unlike anything ever heard on Earth, a harmony that seemed to bridge the gap between music and mathematics, between emotion and pure energy. Children worldwide stopped what they were doing and turned their faces skyward, while most adults found themselves covering their ears in discomfort. Dr. Chen's instruments went wild. The quantum entanglement patterns, she gasped. They're not just alive, they're trying to communicate directly with human consciousness, but only certain brains are capable of receiving the signal. Young brains, Dr. Patel added, her eyes wide with understanding. Children's minds are more plastic, more adaptable. They can process new types of information that adults' brains have become too rigid to accept. Major General Reynolds wasn't interested in the scientific implications. He ordered a second wave of missiles, this time armed with experimental quantum disruption warheads. But before they could launch, something happened that would change the course of human history forever. The gifts, still singing their ethereal song, released clouds of shimmering particles that began to drift down toward the cities below. Each particle caught the light like a soap bubble but moved with purpose and intelligence. And in homes, schools, and shelters across the world, children began to understand what the aliens had been trying to tell them all along. The gifts weren't weapons or toys or simple technological artifacts, they were keys to unlock something humanity had lost long ago. Tommy turned to his sister, tears streaming down his face as the particles swirled around them. "Emily," he whispered, "I can hear them. They're trying to help us remember." "Remember what?" their mother asked, but Emily was already answering, her voice filled with a wisdom far beyond her years. "How to dream together," she said. "How to see the way they see. They've come so far to help us learn what we forgot." As the first part of this extraordinary day drew to a close, humanity stood at a crossroads. The aliens' gifts had survived humanity's first attack, but Major General Reynolds and others like him were already preparing more aggressive measures. The children who had heard the song were changed, but in ways that even the most advanced scientific instruments couldn't fully measure. And high above the Earth, the 12 alien ships continued their perfect orbital dance, waiting to see whether humanity would choose to accept their gifts or reject them in fear. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of this first contact, but the future of both species. In her observatory, Dr. Chen worked furiously to document everything she was seeing, knowing that these events would be studied for centuries to come, if humanity survived its own reaction to them. As she worked, a single particle drifted through her window, landing on her computer screen. For just a moment, she thought she could hear a whisper of the song that had so moved the children. It wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. The awakening. The shimmering particles that had descended from the alien gifts didn't dissipate as scientists had expected. Instead, they formed invisible networks, connecting children across vast distances. Within 24 hours of the failed military strike, the world began to witness unprecedented phenomena. In Tokyo, 7-year-old Hiro Tanaka woke up speaking perfect Portuguese, carrying on a complex conversation with Marina Santos, a girl his age in Sao Paulo, though neither child had previously known the other's language. Their parents watched in astonishment as the children described shared dreams and memories that weren't their own. Dr. Elena Rossi, a prominent child psychologist in Rome, documented hundreds of similar cases. "It's as if the particles have created a kind of collective consciousness among children," she explained during an emergency UN video conference. "But it's not just communication, they're sharing knowledge, emotions, even sensory experiences." In a high-security facility beneath the Pentagon, Major General Reynolds watched footage of children worldwide exhibiting these new abilities. "This is exactly what I feared," he told his staff. "They're creating a fifth column within our own families. These aren't our children anymore, they're becoming something else." Dr. Aisha Patel struggled to maintain her composure. "With all due respect, sir, that's your grandson in this footage." The screen showed 10-year-old Michael Reynolds, the general's grandson, helping a group of younger children understand the complex mathematical patterns hidden within the alien's original transmission. "That's precisely my point, Doctor," Reynolds replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "Whatever that thing is up there, it's using our love for our children against us. We have to act before it's too late." Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, Tommy and Emily Harrison had become focal points of a growing community. Children from throughout the city gravitated to their home, drawn by something they couldn't explain but implicitly understood. Their parents, David and Sarah Harrison, had transformed their basement into an impromptu meeting space. "They're not changing us," Tommy tried to explain to a group of worried parents. "They're helping us remember something humans used to know, before we grew up and forgot how to see it." Emily, sitting cross-legged on the floor, was surrounded by floating particles that danced in complex patterns as she spoke. "The gifts are like training wheels. They help us understand until we can do it on our own." In New Delhi, Priya Sharma's abilities had grown far beyond simple drawings. Her artwork now captured impossible perspectives, views of Earth from angles no human had ever seen, detailed representations of the alien's home world, and maps of consciousness that defied conventional physics. Her father, Wing Commander Rajesh Sharma, had been ordered to prepare for a second military strike against the alien vessels. But each night, as he watched his daughter create her extraordinary art, his resolve weakened. How can I follow orders, he whispered to his wife, when our daughter is showing us the universe through new eyes? The scientific community was equally divided. Dr. Sarah Chen had established a global network of researchers studying the particles' effects, but their findings only deepened the mystery. The particles seemed to operate on quantum principles that violated known physical laws, yet they interacted harmoniously with children's neural patterns. It's as if they're teaching children to access quantum states that adult brains have learned to ignore, she explained to Dr. Patel during a secured video call. The more we study it, the more it seems like the aliens aren't introducing something new, they're helping children maintain something natural that the rest of us have lost. But for every scientist fascinated by the phenomena, there was another warning of catastrophic consequences. Dr. Victor Crane, a prominent neurologist, published a paper claiming the particles were rewiring children's brains in ways that might be irreversible. We have no way of knowing the long-term effects, he argued on international news networks. This could be the end of human consciousness as we know it. The Lagos twins, Olayinka and Oluwaseun Adebayo, provided a powerful counterargument. Using their new abilities, they had started helping doctors at local hospitals diagnose complex medical conditions. Somehow, they could perceive illness at a cellular level, understanding patterns that even advanced medical imaging couldn't detect. The children are not losing their humanity, their mother, Dr. Falami Adebayo, testified before the African Union. They are expanding it, showing us possibilities we never imagined. As tensions mounted, the alien vessels remained in their perfect orbital formation, silent since their initial messages. But the gifts they had sent, though attacked, continued their work. Each day brought new reports of children developing extraordinary abilities, spontaneous understanding of advanced mathematics, unprecedented artistic expression, and most remarkably, a deep ecological awareness that let them perceive Earth's environmental systems as an interconnected whole. In Minneapolis, Tommy Harrison made a discovery that would change everything. During one of the children's basement gatherings, he and several others began to perceive patterns in the particle networks that adults couldn't see. Following these patterns, they realized the particles weren't just enabling communication, they were building something. It's like a bridge, he tried to explain to Dr. Chen during a video call. Not a physical bridge, but a way to connect minds across space. The aliens aren't changing us, they're showing us how to change ourselves. Emily, listening to her brother, added her own insight, they had to start with kids because we still remember how to play. Growing up isn't supposed to mean losing that, it's supposed to mean making it stronger. Major General Reynolds, however, saw the children's evolving abilities as confirmation of his worst fears. In a classified briefing, he presented evidence that the particle networks were spreading, affecting more children each day. If we don't act now, he warned, we'll lose an entire generation. His concerns found support in unexpected places. Religious leaders warned of spiritual corruption. Educational experts worried about children refusing traditional schooling in favor of their new form of learning. Parents reported children becoming distant, spending hours in silent communion with others through the particle network. But those who listened carefully to the children heard a different story. They spoke of healing, not corruption. Of understanding, not alienation. Of a future where human consciousness could expand beyond its current limitations while remaining fundamentally human. Dr. Patel, working with a group of child psychologists, began documenting the children's experiences systematically. A pattern emerged: rather than losing their individuality, the children were developing a deeper sense of self while gaining the ability to connect with others at unprecedented levels. It's like learning a new sense, explained Priya Sharma through an interpreter, though she was increasingly able to communicate directly through the particle network. We don't lose our other senses when we learn to see. We don't lose ourselves when we learn to understand others. As the second day of the alien presence drew to a close, humanity faced a crucial decision. The children's abilities were growing stronger, and their numbers were increasing. Military leaders in several countries were preparing coordinated strikes against the orbital vessels, while others argued for patience and understanding. In the midst of this global tension, the children themselves remained remarkably calm. Through their growing network, they shared an understanding that the adults around them couldn't yet grasp. The aliens' gifts weren't weapons or tools of conquest, they were keys to unlocking human potential that had been dormant for millennia. Tommy Harrison, unable to sleep, watched the particles dance in his room's darkness. Through the network, he could feel other children doing the same around the world. Something was building, a crescendo of consciousness that would soon reach a critical point. "They're not here to change us," he whispered to himself and, through the network, to countless others. "They're here to remind us who we really are." As midnight approached, the alien vessels began to pulse with a new pattern of lights. The children who watched felt a surge of excitement, they knew what was coming next, even if they couldn't explain how they knew. The second phase of the gifts was about to begin, and not everyone on Earth was ready for what it would reveal. The convergence. The coordinated military strike was planned for dawn, but the children knew it was coming hours before the first orders were issued. Through their expanding network, they could sense the mounting tension, the movement of weapons and personnel, the desperate fear driving humanity toward a potentially catastrophic decision. In the Pentagon's Secure Command Center, Major General Reynolds received the final authorizations. Forces from 12 nations would launch simultaneously, using a new generation of quantum disruption weapons developed in secret over the past decade. The general's tablet buzzed with a message, a video from his grandson Michael. "Grandpa, please," the boy's face was streaked with tears. "You don't understand what you're about to destroy. Let me show you." But Reynolds couldn't bring himself to watch the rest. He placed the tablet face down and gave the order to commence final preparations. Across the world, children began to mobilize. In Minneapolis, Tommy Harrison called an emergency gathering, not just in his basement, but across the particle network. Thousands of young minds connected simultaneously, sharing knowledge and forming plans. "We have to show them," Tommy projected through the network. "Not just tell them, show them what we can see." Emily, her consciousness linked with children from every continent, added, "It has to be big enough that they can't ignore it. We have to make them understand what's really at stake." In New Delhi, Priya Sharma's artwork had evolved. She no longer needed paper or pencils, the particles themselves became her medium, forming three-dimensional images in the air that captured the true nature of the alien's gift. Her father, Wing Commander Sharma, watched in awe as she worked with other children globally to create a synchronized display of quantum art visible from anywhere on Earth. Dr. Sarah Chen, working through her third sleepless night, detected massive surges in quantum entanglement patterns. "The network is evolving," she reported to her colleagues. "The children aren't just communicating anymore, they're creating something new." The Lagos twins had made a breakthrough of their own. Working with other children through the network, they discovered they could do more than just diagnose illness, they could channel healing energy through the particle network. In hospitals across Nigeria, terminal patients began to show inexplicable improvements. "The particles aren't just tools," Olayinka explained to astounded medical researchers. "They're teaching us how to access abilities that have always been part of human potential." Oluwaseun demonstrated by helping a child with a previously inoperable brain tumor. "We're learning to see the patterns of life itself," she said. "The aliens aren't giving us new powers, they're showing us how to remember what humanity forgot." But time was running out. Military forces worldwide moved into position. The new weapons were powered up, their quantum disruption fields specifically designed to break the strange energy patterns emanating from the alien vessels. Dr. Aisha Patel made one last attempt to prevent the attack. She had compiled overwhelming evidence of positive changes in the affected children, enhanced cognitive abilities, unprecedented emotional intelligence, and most importantly, no signs of harm or personality alteration. "These children are still human," she argued before a closed session of the UN Security Council. "They're becoming what we could all become if we weren't so afraid of our own potential." In his Minnesota home, David Harrison watched his children with growing concern. Tommy and Emily hadn't slept in days, their consciousness too integrated with the global network to fully disconnect. But rather than showing signs of exhaustion, they seemed energized by a purpose he couldn't fully comprehend. "Dad," Tommy said suddenly, turning to face him. "We need your help. All of us, we need the help of every adult who's willing to listen." Emily joined in, the particles around her forming complex geometric patterns. "The aliens chose children because we trust more easily, but what they're offering is for everyone. We just have to prove it before it's too late." Through the network, children worldwide began to coordinate the largest demonstration of their new abilities yet. In every major city, the particles coalesced into visible patterns, forming bridges of light between young minds that adults could finally see. Hiro Tanaka in Tokyo connected with Marina Santos in Sao Paulo, their shared consciousness creating a display of quantum architecture that transformed the sky between their cities. The Lagos twins linked with Priya Sharma, their combined healing knowledge manifesting as a globe-spanning network of golden light that made the Earth's natural healing processes visible to the naked eye. In Minneapolis, Tommy and Emily joined their consciousness with Michael Reynolds and thousands of others. Together, they created something unprecedented, a window into the quantum realm that the aliens had been trying to help humanity access all along. Dr. Chen's instruments nearly overloaded trying to measure what was happening. "This is beyond anything we've theorized," she breathed, watching her displays light up with impossible readings. "They're not just communicating through quantum states, they're making them visible to everyone." The military forces, moments away from launching their attack, faced an unexpected obstacle, their own children, connecting with them through means that transcended physical distance. Pilots saw visions of their sons and daughters, sharing glimpses of what the world could become. Commanders received desperate messages from their families, begging them to wait and witness what was unfolding. Wing Commander Sharma, seated in his fighter jet and ready to launch, saw his daughter's art come alive in the sky before him. For the first time, he understood what she had been trying to show him, the interconnected nature of all consciousness, the potential that lay dormant in every human mind. Major General Reynolds, watching the global phenomenon through military satellites, received another message from his grandson. This time, he couldn't ignore it. The tablet displayed not just Michael's face, but a direct transmission of what the boy could see through the network, a vision of human consciousness evolved beyond the limitations of fear and separation. "This is what they're offering us, Grandpa," Michael's voice came through clearly. "Not an invasion, not a takeover. A reminder of what we really are." The alien vessels, still maintaining their perfect orbital formation, began to pulse with new patterns of light that exactly matched the quantum displays being created by the children below. The synchronization made it clear, the aliens weren't controlling the children, they were responding to them, amplifying what the young ones had already learned to do. Dr. Patel, working with a team of quantum physicists, finally understood the true nature of the gifts. "They're not changing human consciousness," she announced to a stunned scientific community. "They're providing a framework that allows consciousness to express itself in ways we've forgotten were possible. The children aren't being transformed, they're showing us what we've always been capable of." As dawn approached and military forces stood ready to launch their attack, humanity faced its moment of truth. The children had made the quantum realm visible, demonstrating abilities that defied conventional physics but aligned perfectly with the deepest human intuitions about consciousness and connection. The next few minutes would determine whether humanity would embrace this evolution or reject it in fear. The children had done everything they could to show the truth. Now, they could only wait and hope that the adults would choose wisdom over fear, potential over protection, growth over the familiar comfort of limitation. In orbit, the alien vessels continued their patient vigil, their gifts still offering humanity a chance to remember what it had forgotten so long ago. The choice, as it had always been, remained in human hands. The evolution. In the end, it wasn't the children's extraordinary displays of power that prevented catastrophe, it was a simple act of love. As Major General Reynolds watched the quantum light show created by his grandson Michael, his finger hovering over the launch authorization, he saw something that changed everything, his own childhood memories, preserved perfectly in his grandson's mind, of looking up at the stars and dreaming of peaceful contact with alien civilizations. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice cracking with emotion. "All units, stand down immediately." Around the world, similar scenes played out. Military commanders, political leaders, and parents alike found themselves confronted not with an alien invasion, but with a mirror reflecting humanity's highest potential. The coordinated attack never launched. Instead, something unprecedented began to unfold. Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring the global quantum network from her observatory, detected a new pattern emerging. "The children," she reported excitedly, "they're not just connecting with each other anymore. The network is expanding to include adults who are ready to receive it." Tommy and Emily Harrison witnessed it first in their father. David Harrison, who had watched his children's transformation with equal parts wonder and fear, suddenly gasped as the particle network became visible to him. "I can see it," he whispered. "I can finally see what you've been trying to show us." The phenomenon spread rapidly. Adults who opened themselves to the possibility began to experience what the children had been experiencing all along. The quantum realm, invisible to conventional human perception, became accessible to anyone willing to remember how to see it. Priya Sharma's father, Wing Commander Sharma, landed his fighter jet and embraced his daughter. As they hugged, he found himself able to see her artwork as she saw it, not just with his eyes, but with his consciousness. The patterns of universal energy that she had been trying to capture became clear to him at last. In Lagos, the Adebayo twins' mother, Dr. Folami, discovered she could perceive the healing energies her children had been channeling. Together, they began teaching other medical professionals how to access these abilities, revolutionizing medicine overnight. The alien vessels, still in their perfect orbital formation, initiated the final phase of their mission. The gifts that had survived humanity's initial attack began to pulse with new energy. But this time, no one reacted with fear. Humanity had learned its lesson. Dr. Aisha Patel, working with a global team of scientists, finally decoded the aliens' original message completely. "They didn't just come to give us gifts," she announced to a united UN General Assembly. "They came to remind us of our own gifts, abilities we lost touch with as our civilization focused exclusively on technological advancement at the expense of consciousness evolution." The truth emerged: the aliens were representatives of a galactic community that humanity had once been part of, eons ago. The gifts were keys to reawaken humanity's dormant potential, allowing Earth to rejoin a vast network of conscious civilizations spanning the galaxy. Major General Reynolds, having resigned his military commission, stood with his grandson Michael as the boy explained to world leaders what the children had understood all along. "The particles don't give us new abilities," Michael said. "They help us remember who we really are, who we've always been. The aliens didn't come to change us, they came to wake us up." Humanity entered a new phase of existence. The barrier between adult and child consciousness began to dissolve as more people remembered how to access their innate abilities. The particle network became a permanent part of human experience, enabling unprecedented collaboration and understanding across all boundaries. In Minneapolis, Tommy and Emily watched as their basement gathering place transformed into one of many global centers for consciousness evolution. Children and adults worked together, learning from each other, breaking down the artificial divisions that had separated humanity for so long. Dr. Chen's research revealed that the particles were beginning to naturally reproduce in Earth's atmosphere. "We won't need the alien gifts forever," she explained. "They've initiated a process that will continue on its own, as humanity remembers and rebuilds its connection to the quantum realm." 1 year after the aliens' arrival, Earth had changed beyond recognition, yet remained fundamentally human. Cities were transformed by quantum architecture that responded to consciousness. Healing centers combined traditional medicine with energy work. Schools became places where children taught adults as much as adults taught children. The aliens finally shared their true form, beings of pure consciousness who had chosen physical forms solely to interact with humanity in its current state. As more humans developed their quantum awareness, direct communication became possible, and Earth began its integration into the galactic community. Tommy, now 13, stood with his sister Emily in their backyard, looking up at the stars. The alien vessels were departing, their mission complete. But they weren't leaving Earth alone, they were leaving it awakened, connected, and ready to take its place among conscious civilizations. Do you think we'll ever see them again? Emily asked, the particles dancing around her in complex patterns. Tommy smiled, sensing the vast network of consciousness that now spanned the globe. They never really leave, he said. They're part of the same connection we all share now. We just had to remember how to see it. In his former Pentagon office, now converted into a consciousness research center, Major General Reynolds sat with his grandson Michael, watching the aliens depart. I almost destroyed this, he said quietly. Michael took his grandfather's hand. But you didn't, he replied. You remembered how to trust, how to see with your heart. That's what they came to help us all do. The final alien vessel disappeared from orbit just as the sun rose over Earth. But humanity was no longer looking up for guidance. The gifts had served their purpose, humanity had remembered its own inherent gifts, its connection to the cosmos, and most importantly, its capacity for conscious evolution. Dr. Patel, recording the official conclusion to Earth's first documented contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, wrote words that would be remembered for generations. They came bearing gifts for our children, and in doing so, helped us all remember that we were once children of the stars ourselves. The greatest gift was not what they brought from across the galaxy, but what they helped us find within ourselves, the ability to trust, to grow, and to evolve beyond our fears. The story of the aliens' gifts became legend, but the true legacy was the transformation of human consciousness. Earth entered a new era, not through conquest or technological advancement alone, but through the remembrance of its own forgotten potential. And somewhere in the vast cosmic ocean, other civilizations watched and celebrated as humanity took its first steps back into the galactic community, not as conquerors or subjects, but as awakened equals, ready to contribute their unique gifts to the universal dance of consciousness. The end was really just the beginning.